So I would say this with schools, one of the flaws in the appeal system is going to a circuit court judge in that county whose kids are probably in the schools, and he has a relationship with the schools. There's better ways to do this, but the schools are so trusted that no one would ever, most people don't question what they do at all. So it's just, there's a flaw in the system. It's like, to be honest with you, when I've done some criminal cases in my early days, how I realized the judge, the prosecutor, and the police were on one side, my client and I are on the other side, and I went, wow, what's this about? You know, when you're representing minority clients like I was in Arkansas, wow. I remember telling a judge once, I said, Your Honor, the Constitution, oh, Mr. Whitehead, I want to violate your constitutional rights, but go ahead. And he was mocking me when I brought the Constitution up. It was a police situation, and I saw right away that I had the police, the prosecutor, and the judge on one side. And you'll see that in the school system too. So it's not quite an idealistic system that most people think.
So what is the attitude of the school board towards the case? Is it possible to use that as an avenue if they're not, if it can relate to your situation, any kid can throw spitballs? Is that a valid way to reach out to those parents and say, if we all came together and just spoke to the principal of the board, you know, to come together and say, hey, this is just incredibly trivial. Maybe we just don't have to go to all these other court. Is that a possibility?
Well, I'll tell you, when this first happened, a group of neighbors and friends and people that thought this was outrageous went to a school board meeting. And they have a public comment period at the beginning of the school board meeting where you can go up and say your piece. Well, they heard we were coming, so they hired a deputy to come to make sure there was no trouble. And they also, before the meeting began, they said, we know there's many here to speak about an incident that happened at the high school. We'll tell you now that you will not talk about this incident. Though we don't want to violate your First Amendment rights, you will not talk about this. And they said they threatened that there might be prosecution if anyone did talk about this. So basically, I had a wonderful elderly lady that wanted to come and speak on my son's behalf. She was scared to go up and speak because of the words that they used. I've had two of the school board members, I think they're cowards, said this is outrageous, we got to do something about this. But, you know, when the heat was on, they retreated, they didn't want nothing to do with it. They're too worried about, I guess, the politics and the careers, that they don't want to get involved in a fight. Even though in private they'll tell you how bad and how horrible this is, and the reason went out the door. When it came to, you know, when the rubber meets the road, they were nowhere to be found. So I guess what we're looking at is, because of all this, several of the school board members aren't running for a re-election this year. And me and some neighbors have been active as far as looking at who's running and meeting with them and making sure they understand, you know, your kids' rights. And we talked about this with my son, is the Constitution says, and I believe this is true, is that we have inherent rights, that they're within us, they're part of us, they cannot be taken away, they cannot be given away. Well, if that's true for me, that's true for my son as well. If it's a God-given inherent right, nobody can take that away from you. And in this case, I feel he was abused and violated in that regard.
He's making a good point here, and kind of subtly, and that is why these things happen is people are not involved. It usually takes an incident like this to get people involved. So, I mean, many years ago, parents should have been at the school board meetings yelling about these things, and they haven't been. So, the power shifted to so-called elected officials, and I hope it's, you know, not too late. I really don't think so, but it, you know, all it takes is, I guarantee you, 50 people at a school board meeting with a few signs or whatever, and they start counting votes, and that's how you affect the system. If the courts are difficult, then the only other way is go after them, get your own political group together. together and fight it. Get them off school board, get someone on there who will listen.
John, another thing that the schools do is when they do have a school board meeting, they make it as difficult as possible for the individual to come forward. They either schedule the time that you can comment to weigh at the end, and I've even known school board members, they take a training. If there's a bunch of people on a certain subject, they know how to divide them up or to close out the questions. Everything is devised to shut down. I've had problems even when my kids were in school complaining about a certain book or whatever, and they know how to shut you down. It's very difficult for the individual. You would think if 2 or 3 parents in a school objected to a certain book that they would say, you know what, I'm sorry if you know, we don't want to offend you, there's plenty of other books, let's just go with another book. They will not. They will defy you, they will not listen to you, they will shut you down. So it's very hard to break through that.
You're dealing with an amazing bureaucracy. The only way I've found, to be honest with you, found Rutherford sue them. Letters telling them, giving them reason. We have our case up in Massachusetts, the testatory case, where they asked the kids really lewd questions. 7th and 8th graders, do they have oral sex and stuff like that? Well, we wrote a policy, sent it to them and said, just enforce this policy, the case is over, which basically said, follow federal law, which requires written consent before students take these tests. They just blow you off. So then we have to, we did appeal the Department of Education in that case just recently, but that's the avenue the statute gives us. So there's only 2 ways to deal with any entity or person: is force or reason. Reason is follow the law. They don't. Force is filing a lawsuit.
I don't know to what extent teachers' unions have influence in the way the laws are made, but is this potentially
Yeah,
a case
very,
where
very,
teacher
a
unions
lot of
have this
influence.
very-
Yeah. Rita Dunaway's not here, but she works with us, and she works down, and she's going to be involved in the appeal. In Richmond at the House of Delegates, and every change that, and she tells me that she's shocked when she goes down and testifies before a committee on, and just a parental rights notice in a statute dealing with school issues. She says the large teacher lobbying organizations are always there arguing against any kind of change in the laws, which would grant parents more rights and students more leeway. It really surprised her when she first started doing it, how strong they are. And I've debated the lobbyists, teachers lobbying, the lobbyists for you. Very simplistic, but again, I go back and say what we recognize here is you're dealing with a very huge bureaucracy that's very staid, and you can't not. It's like pushing a boulder. It's very difficult to do. And suppose we live in a free country. That's the iron. Any other question? Yes, David.
I guess so. Since the implementation of zero tolerance policy, has there been any study that's shown that there's a decrease in school violence or drug usage?
Well, what the studies show is that the students aren't violent anyway. And over the years, I mean, before they even instituted it, there was without Columbine, you probably wouldn't have if you remember the Columbine incident. That really spurred, they had to do something about it. But you were dealing with 2 kids on psychotropic drugs who were nuts. So, no. Yes.
The question, 2 questions basically. Are you still going to school? They are letting you to go to school, and what is the situation? Number 2, how about your parents, students' parents, or the students? Do they talk and support you?
Before you answer that, just one other thing to David's question. The American Bar Association and the American Psychological Association have both come out and attacked zero tolerance policies, saying they should be eliminated. So, but the schools aren't listening to that either. Go ahead.
Well, right now I'm homeschooling, but we're thinking about going to school next year.
Any other questions?
What about requesting a jury trial instead of a judge? I don't know if you're able to do that, but
Not really, no, not under state law. we'll get a set of judges at the Supreme Court. We get one, maybe more than one opinion at the Supreme Court of Virginia. And we will, depending on how the client's going to do it, keep pursuing it.
Just wondering, is the Supreme Court appeal discretionary, or is it automatic?
No, they will listen to the case. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're filing a notice of appeal. We are appealing. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? I don't know how to end this, but I don't know. I think there's a dangerous mindset here. I don't think there's really a conspiracy. I don't think the people getting in the bat rooms going, hey, we're going to mess with kids. I think there's just a consensus. For some reason, kids are seen as dangerous items in schools. Where that mentality came from, I don't know. Because most kids, people I run into are like you. You're nice people. There are kids that are screwed up, and they should be disciplined. I don't believe in punishment. My theory is keep kids in school at all costs if you can, unless they're violent or something. If you're hyperactive in a public school today, that there's a high chance you'll be given Ritalin. There's at least 5 million kids in the United States on Ritalin right now, which, as you probably know, settles kids like me who are in school. They settle you down and stifle creativity. So I think the future implications, already said, do not look good for us. I think education is the most important thing. People from other countries come to me and say, what's your basic process of education? Because this generation in the classroom right now, if they feel oppressed and they don't rebel against it, will be a very compliant generation. And what that holds for the future, I don't know. So there's a reason. I grew up in the 60s generation where everybody grabbed a picket sign. We had leaders out there saying, charge ahead. You don't see that today. I mean, if kids do anything, I've argued with school principals. I said, you already encourage kids to picket your school as a laboratory, but then, First Amendment stuff. There's no controversy. They want to keep order. And the way you keep order is just tough policies. We'll watch a video. I mean, a really good documentary is done called The War Against Kids. I'll try to get you guys a copy. But it goes into all of this. I was actually interviewed on it. It's a very good documentary, but that's basically what it is. There is a mentality, a consensus, that children are dangerous and they have to be controlled. And I disagree with that. And some of you may disagree with me. Any other questions, or is this it? Thank you very much.